So, respected chairpersons, my seniors, teachers, colleagues, and other students. Today I'm going to review the process of domestication of animals in the Indian subcontinent. So it has been a question which has been debated for a long time, which animals were domesticated in the Indian subcontinent and which animals came from outside these. So before going to the presentation, we should know what is the domestic animals. So the animals we can divide into different categories like wild, tame, opportunist, domestic, and feral. And there is a disagreement also over the definition of over the domestic animals, because some people like to define domestications on the basis of biological conditions like a symbiotic relationship. And some other scholars try to define a domestic animal on the basis of cultural side, like human control and how the domestication of animals affected the human societies. And the another questions which often comes to our mind is that we have such a large number of animals in this world. So why few animals were domesticated only? Because if you look at the number of domestic animals, there are 14 major genera. If you look at the India, like cattle, buffalo, sheep, goat, pig, and dog, cat, these are the major ones which we generally found. So what were the reasons the other animals were not domesticated? So many people have tried to answer that, and many hypotheses have been forwarded. So these are some of the points which have been noted by different scholars, that the animals which were to be domesticated, they should be hardy, means the young animal should be able to survive when it is removed from its parents or from its own mother. They should have an inborn liking for humans, and then they should be comfort living, then they should be useful to humans in some way or other. For example, if we try to domesticate a tiger, what will tiger give us? It won't give us anything in return. Then they should be easy to tend. For example, in case like antelopes and deers, they are very much similar to the animals like sheep and goat. So why didn't humans domesticate antelope and gazelle or other deers? Because whenever there is a behavioral difference between these animals and the sheep goat. Whenever we approach to an antelope or a gazelle, they suddenly start flighting, means they can't stand humans. On the other hand, if you'll go to the group of sheep or goat, they will stand there, they will not flight. So these are some of the behavioral characteristics which have helped humans to identify the animals that he can domesticate, and he tried his hand in domestication of these animals. And this domestication process hasn't stopped now. People are still experimenting by domesticating various animals. This can be seen in cases of birds especially. For example, now we have pigeon, then ducks. These animals are later domestications. So whenever we come to the question of domestication, so there are 4 or 5 questions which we generally try to answer. Like, where were they domesticated? How long were they domesticated? What species were they domesticated from? Did it happen separately in multiple locations or only in one location? And how did it happen? What led people to adopt these animals or to domesticate these animals? So now we have, there are 2 approaches by which we can document the process of animal domestications. And this is archaeological domestication, archaeological approaches to document animal domestication, and the genetic approaches to document animal domestication. Genetic one is a recent one, and it is making great strides, and it is able to answer a lots of questions which was not possible a few years ago. So what are the archaeological approaches to document animal domestications? So when an animal was domesticated, its morphology, it changed, its behavior it changed. There were lots of changes. So we can't detect all of these changes, but the changes which happened in the skeletal elements and the bones, that we can detect on the bones. The other one is the sex and age patterns. So whenever we go to a family which is having, suppose a herd of cattle or herd of goat, you will find that they will be having a definite pattern. Like there will be certain female animals. If the household is serving for daring purposes, he will keep the female animals more. But in case of wild assemblage, you will not find such sort of patterns. Then the measurements data, we can measure different skeletal elements, then we compare them. And that data also shows certain amount of differences. Next, how can we document animal domestication by using genetic data? So there are a number of ways. Mostly it is done by DNA or the deoxyribose nucleic acid. So there are three main material like nuclear data. It is found on the Y chromosome, on the male chromosome, and then the mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondria, as we know, it is a cell creating a organelle found in the cell. So it also has a DNA that is called mitochondrial DNA. It gives us the maternal lineage of that animal. And there are many other genetic markers which have been utilized now to document the process of animal domestication. So I'll start by looking into our relationship with the first animal, dog. So it is supposed to be the first animal which humans domesticated. And we all know that it is known as the man's best friend. So if we look at the different breeds of dogs in present context, then we find that there are different varieties. You can't even imagine, you'll find a small one and you will find a very tall one. For example, I have given pictures of 4 or 5 varieties. Similarly, if you look at the different breeds, like we have Labrador. Labrador has a webbed feet. Then if you look at the terriers, these are very aggressive. If you look at the German Shepherd, they are known as the guard dog, and they're used for guarding and purposes. And Golden Retriever. So if you look at these all breeds, so we can't believe that all these animals are derived from one single species. So it has led even to question Darwin. After looking all these changes, he asked, I do not believe that all our dogs have descended from any one wild species. So was he right? Not really. Now we all know that all dogs have come from one single species that we know as the wolf or the Canis lupus. Earlier, there was debate whether dogs were domesticated from jackal. Some people were saying that they were domesticated from coyote. Some were saying that these were domesticated from dhole. Yeah. Now, the genetic studies have shown that dogs and wolves share 90% of their data, and now it is well established that domestic dogs have been originated from the wolf. So how did it happen? So there are different theories. Different scholars have proposed different theories. For example, according to one theory, people say that people caught wolf puppies and raised them among people. Then there is another theory that dog approached closer and closer to human settlements because their nature was very similar to humans. Means they are also social animals and they are scavengers also. So they started attracted to human settlements for food, and gradually they got acquainted. Then, if you look at the two different sources, archaeology and genetics, these two sources gives us two completely different picture. For example, if you look at the archaeological source, then archaeological source tells us that the earliest evidence of dog comes from Israel, where a human skeleton was found with a puppy. It has been dated around 10,000 BCE. And on the other hand, if you look at the genetical data has given us two different dates. One belongs to 15,000 years ago, and the other one is 135,000 years ago. And these two are debated. Most probably, the 15,000 years ago was the closest, means within the range of 10,000 to 15,000 BC, the dog was domesticated. So if you look at the Indian subcontinent, do we have evidence which shows that any process related to dog domestication? Then we do not have those evidences that we can put at the earliest date, but we have paintings, rock paintings. For example, here you can see a rock art from the site of Bhimbetka, where a human is depicted with a dog. And then if you look at the Neolithic sites of Kashmir, there we are having human burials where dogs were buried. These are just a few examples. On the other hand, we are generally getting the isolated skeletal elements of dog from all the sites, but it doesn't give us any clear picture when dog was domesticated in the Indian subcontinent and at what time. Now, when we move to the next animal, this is the cat. So if you look at the cat family, so there are four main families. And the cat belongs to the Felidae of what is called Felis family, Felis group. So as was the case with dog, for cat also people propose different ancestor species. Some people said that domestic cat derived from European wild cat. Some people said no, it was derived from African wild cat. And then now finally people are reaching to the conclusion that probably domestic cats were domesticated in the Central Asia from a Middle East Asian wild cat. So the earliest evidence, if you look, we don't have those evidences, though we are having isolated findings during the Harappan sites and even in the Chalcolithic sites, we do not having any other evidence. But compared to the Harappan sites, if you look at the Egypt, there we are having the evidence of cat in plenty. For example, where we can see that the cat goddess worshipped was around 4,005 years ago. Then we also have evidence of cat mummies. And so we can say that probably the cat was domesticated during that particular time period in that area, and later on it moved to the other places. Then we come to the sheep. So sheep was the first food animal that humans domesticated. So again, here also we were having so many different candidates, and people were arguing which ancestor species gave rise to the sheep. So finally, now people actually still disagree on it, but finally Asiatic mufflon or the Ovis orientalis, it is now generally accepted as the ancestor species of the sheep. And the earliest evidence of archaeological evidence for sheep domestication comes from the northeastern Iraq and southwestern Anatolia, where a number of sites have been given evidence related to the domestication of sheep. And people have also tried to hypothesize how the sheep were domesticated. There are different theories. One of them I have noted down here. Then the other animal which we generally found is the goat. It is also known as poor man's cow. Here again, if you see, there are different species, and there are two goats which are the candidates for the ancestors. They are called Bijor goat and Markhor goat. So there are three domestication evidence events which are supposed to happen around 10,500 to 9,500 years ago. Two events are in this region. This is called the Fertile Crescent region or the Jagros mountain region, and the other one is the Mehergarh. But there is doubt whether they were domesticated in the site of Mehergarh or not, because at the earliest phase of the site we were having evidence of the young goats there. So this is one of the burial where we have evidence of goats. Then cattle, when cattle was introduced, it completely revolutionized the human's relationship with animals. Because though from sheep and goat, humans were getting food, milk, but cattle gave them another advantage. Now, people started using cattle for farming purposes, for transportation. So it, in a way, revolutionized the way the human-animal relationship was viewed. So if you look at the worldwide, there are two types of cattle. One is Bos domestication, Bos indicus, the Jabu cattle, the cattle with a prominent hump, and the other one is the Bos taurus or the taurine. It is without a hump. So Jabu cattle, as you can see, Jabu cattle, it has been identified as the Bos indicus. So it is the cattle of Indian subcontinent. And if you look at the taurine cattle or the Bos taurus, this is generally found in the lands of Europe, West Africa, the Americans, and the Northern Asia. So from whom these two cattle were derived? So both of these types, either it was Bos indicus or Bos taurus, both of these are supposed to derive from an extinct species that is called archers. So there are three different domestication events for cattle also. One happened around 10,005 years ago in the Middle East. The other one is in our Indian subcontinent. That happened around 8,500 years ago. And now recently a new domestication event has been proposed in the China. That also complements to what happened in the Middle East. So from India, we have the evidence of cattle domestication from Balochistan, or the site of Mehergarh. It's a well-known site. And if you look at the Harappan iconography or the Harappan figurines, then we find that we have evidence of both Zebu as well as taurine cattle. So now we have the evidence of domestication of cattle. So how did this unhumped cattle came into the picture? So it is now genetic data shows that during that time, these people were having contacts, and both these cattle were moving from one place to another. Means people from Harappans were sending our Zebu cattle to the Mesopotamian region, and they were receiving in return the non-humped cattle. But in addition to these, now we have enough evidence, and we have possibility that within India itself, there were 3 different centers for cattle domestication. One prominent region is the region of Gujarat, where we are recovering very beautiful evidence of cattle domestication. There the other region, which is not explored, but which is a potential area, is the Gangetic Plain region, and the third one is the southern India. Then the next animal is water buffalo. So we have 2 types of water buffalo. One is the swamp buffalo, and the other one is the river buffalo or the water buffalo. So you can see the difference. Swamp buffalo generally likes to live in the muddy water, while the water buffalo or the river buffalo lives in the clean water. So Indian buffalo is considered, we have a species called, it's called Bubelus arni. It is still alive, and it is supposed to have given to the domestic buffalo. So now the domestication of buffalo is still not clear. People are still fighting over this place and over the dates of its domestication. But now from Gujarat itself, we are having evidence that probably this animal was also domesticated in western part of India, most probably in Gujarat. For example, if you look, there are some Mesolithic sites like Santhali, where we are having a large number of wild buffalo skeletons. And when we see the faunal data that is coming from Dholavira, site of Dholavira, there we are having a number of buffalo specimens, and here we are having both wild and domestic ones. So it gives us a possibility that because we were having the ancestor species, so most probably the wild buffalo give rise to the domestic one in this area. And then if you look at the other evidence, artifactual evidence during the Harappan period, then we have many seals which depict buffalo. Then finally, the pigs. It was a later addition to the human society, and these are generally known as the misunderstood animals, because these animals are supposed to be dirty or filthy animals. But on the other hand, if we look at their behavior, their physiology, they are the most clean animals, because these animals do not have sweat glands. That's why they love to stay in the water and the mud to clean their body off. So all the domestic pigs, whatever we are having today all over the world, they have descended only from one species, that is the Sosiscopa. And this Sosiscopa, or the wild boar, is distributed widely. It is found in many places. So it's very difficult from earlier on to find out the place where it was domesticated. But now genetic studies are making our task easier. Now genetic studies are showing that pig was one of those animals which was domesticated at multiple places at multiple times. And India is also included in that. So probably in India, there were 2-3 domestication events that took place. For example, this is a map that shows the different centers. So even in this small area, you can see there are so many dots. So all these places are possible places where the domestication of pig could have taken place. So one of the scholars has written in his article, he was a genetist, that where did, perhaps the question would no longer be where did pig domestication occur, but rather where domestication of pig did not take place. So it's very complicated, but certainly there were certain places where pig domestication took place in the Indian subcontinent. Then horse. Now, horse was also a later inclusion. It was, there were two candidates from which horse came into the picture. One is Terpan, the other one is the Przewalski horse. Earlier, the Przewalski horse or the wild Asiatic horse was supposed to be the ancestral species of domestic horse. But now, the evidence is supporting the other way. Now, the Terpan or the wild European horse is believed to be the ancestral species of domestic horse. So, the earliest evidence of horse we were having from the site of Deriveka. This was the earliest evidence which has
Dr.
given
Goyel, please summarize it quickly
yes,
now.
The site has given us evidence around 4,400 BC, but now the radiocarbon dates that are coming from that place is doubting this. And now it is believed to be of a later time. But there is another place that is called Botai, that is in Kazakhstan, where a new culture has been named that is called Botai culture. And these sites, the sites are located in this region, have also given evidence which were coming from the site of Deriveka. So now this is supposed to be a new center of horse domestication. In Indian subcontinent, we are having evidence of horse from the Harappan period onwards. In some of the sites, we are having the remains of horse, but there is a disagreement over on the presence of horse, whether it was present during the Harappan period or not. And there are many debates. There were many debates. The problem, one of the problem was because in most of the sites which have revealed the evidence of horse are in Gujarat. And in Gujarat, we have three species of equid species. One is wild ass, the other one is ass, and third one is horse. And morphologically, these species are very similar, and it's very difficult to separate out these species. But later on, the horse becomes very popular, and if you look at the megalithic culture, which begins from 1000 BC onwards, then we find lots of horse animals, even the burial were devoted to the horse. Then finally, camel. Camel was also a later inclusion in the human society. There were two types of cattle, Bactrian camels and the dromedary camel, or the two-humped camel and the one-humped camel. So the two-humped camel was probably domesticated during 3rd millennium BCE in the Central Asia, and one-humped camel was domesticated towards the end of the 2nd millennium BCE in the Arabian Peninsula. Later on, they migrated towards the Indian subcontinent. Thank you.